Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. My name is Naeem Badiya Zaman. I welcome all of you on behalf of Strive UK. We are a British Muslim organization with members all over the country, and we are very, very happy to invite you to this online session titled Hajj and the State of the Ummah. We are particularly privileged and not to say excited to have an exceptional individual with us, someone who we think is one of the biggest and longest serving British Muslim activists. We are pleased to have with us Dr. Azzam Tamimi, who's had an amazing body of work in several of the fields that are there as far as the movement is concerned. Quite a lot of us will also know him as one of the founder members of MAB. Dr. Azzam, welcome today. We will get straight away into the topic and also the reason why everybody is online today. So we will start with your session today. I invite everybody to please submit in your questions either throughout or the end of Dr. Azzam's class. We will do our ultimate best to answer them today. Thank you. Over to you, Dr.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله ومن والاه. Thank you very much for inviting me and hosting me today, and it's really a pleasure. Of course, now is the season of Hajj, and hence the talk about this important farida or obligation. Of course, everyone with us would know that Hajj is the fifth pillar in Islam. Islam is established on 5 pillars, beginning with the kalima and ending with the Hajj. And Hajj is compulsory upon every Muslim man or woman, provided they are able to perform it. So it's really it's a worship that is conditioned upon the ability of the individual to perform it. It's the ability that requires the availability of funds, it requires the health capability to be healthy enough to be able to perform this obligation. Those of you who have already performed Hajj would know that it's not an easy ritual. It involves a lot of travel, a lot of walking, a lot of physical efforts, a lot of psychological effort as well to be prepared and to really try and make use of this once a lifetime opportunity for most people to learn as well as to worship and to get closer and closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that's why you all probably already know that those who go to Hajj, once they've performed it properly, they return like newly born. All their sins would be forgiven, except, of course, for the rights of people. And this is a golden rule in Islam, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgives us for the sins we commit against Him, but not sins that we commit against fellow human beings. It is Allah's justice, it's the justness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He does not forgive the abuse of others. He does not forgive any aggression on others. This is the right of the victims upon whom such abuse is exacted to demand justice or to decide to forgive, etc. So it's really very important to bear in mind, because I know that sometimes people, when they go to Hajj, they say, oh, they send messages around to their friends and family members and loved ones and acquaintances saying, oh, we're going to Hajj, so please forgive us, make dua for us. Well, yes, it would be good for people to forgive each other, but don't count on it, because if you've abused someone, you really need to go to them and repay them, or make right whatever wrong that you have committed. Anyway, Hajj is very important in Islam. First, because it's the fifth pillar, as I mentioned earlier, and second, because it is a lifetime journey that provides a Muslim with an opportunity to do lots of things, both physically and spiritually. Now, throughout history, Hajj never stopped, despite whatever difficulties the Ummah may happen to be in. And there were quite difficult moments in history, quite a few difficult moments in history. For instance, if you read in history books, you will know that at times pilgrims were attacked by wayfarers, by robbers. Sometimes certain authorities did not provide a safe passage for the pilgrims. In the old days, facilities were not as comfortable as they happen to be today. And at least people of my age would remember that when our grandparents and parents told us about the Hajj they performed, that it was as if you're going on a trip you're not sure you're going to come back from. Depending on where you depart from, it took weeks, if not months, sometimes. And true, many people lost their lives in that journey. Yet, it is still compulsory. It is still an annual event. And while it is expected of the pilgrims themselves to perform certain rituals, those who don't join the pilgrims for the season and who stay behind, those who have already performed the faridah, or those who are unable to do it yet, or who plan to do it later on, they live the moment. We live the minute by minute ritual. For instance, fasting the first 9 days of the month of the Hijjah. This is when the pilgrims start arriving and preparing themselves for the Hajj. We are advised to fast those days for those who can. And if you cannot fast the entire 9 days, the day number 9, which is the day of Arafah, when the pilgrims are standing in Arafah, that's the culmination of Hajj. That's a day that is highly recommended to fast. The Rasulullah ﷺ mentioned that the fasting of the day of Arafah would forgive the sins of one past year and one coming year. So it's a very important season in the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and Allah wants us to live that season accordingly. Now there is today, because of the situation of the Ummah, and I mean my talk is entitled Hajj and the State of the Ummah. The state of the Ummah is not really in its best shape. Yes, Hajj or pilgrimage has become a lot easier than before in terms of transport. You take an aeroplane, and it's quite comfortable. And there now people live in air-conditioned accommodations, and depending on how much you are willing to pay, you can get levels of Hajj. There are ordinary Hajj. There is ordinary Hajj, and there is super Hajj, as some people call it, where you are provided with exceptional transport and exceptional accommodation, and even food and meals during the performance of the rituals, which some people are a bit critical of, because you're really supposed to be the Hajj is the farida, or is the obligation in whose performance Muslims are supposed to show equality. and rather than these preferences. But unfortunately, this is the nature of things, that it depends on how much money you are willing to pay, how wealthy you are. And because of the um, commercialization of Hajj, I regret to say that this is possible. I mean, I remember the first Hajj I performed, I was about 16 or 17 years old. I was at school, and we went as school pupils and teachers. It wasn't as modern as it is today. For instance, pilgrims had to live in houses or in old hotels with medicure services, modest sort of milieu. You still had to travel like everybody else, no preferences. I think today, for the past probably 15 or 20 years, and increasingly every year, the commercialization of Hajj increases. And now you have these super 5-star to 7-star hotels replacing all the old accommodations that the pilgrims used to stay in, whether in Mecca or in Medina, with the full board, 3 meals. And of course, all of this costs a lot of money. That's why Hajj today is a lot more expensive than it used to be. I remember my second Hajj was in 2007, and it cost me £2,500 for a relatively good sort of package. I understand that today the cost is well above £7,500, sometimes reaching £10,000. And that's because the services that are provided are costing a lot of money, and they are deliberately made to cost a lot of money because this is part of the commercialization of Hajj. And this brings us to the status of the Ummah, because the Ummah is not in its best shape. This is happening. Those who are ruling the lands where the Mecca and Medina happen to be, where we go to perform Hajj, are increasingly becoming business-minded to the extent now Umrah it costs a lot of money, Hajj costs a lot of money. So it's not as easy as it used to be, and an increasing number of people are no longer able to afford it. Hajj is supposed to be afforded by the average Muslim. Today, an average Muslim cannot really afford Hajj because of that cost. But this is not the most negative aspects reflected on Hajj as a result of the bad shape in which the Ummah happens to be. Today, if you have certain political affiliations, if you are deemed to be a threat to the rulers of that country, it's probably not safe for you to go to Hajj. Of course, the least that can happen to you is to be sent back. And I remember in 2007, when I went to Hajj, together in the same group, we had Sheikh Rashid al-Ghannouchi, the leader of the Nahda movement, and he was sent back from Jeddah. He was in Ihram, ready to perform the rituals, and he was sent back. And at the time, of course, they didn't explain why he was being sent back. But imagine, I mean, for a Muslim to be sent back, you're going not visit. We are not visiting a human being. We are not visiting a country. We are visiting Allah. This is an invitation by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. As he told us, he made Ibrahim alayhi salam pave the way for such a global invitation for people to come to Hajj and perform these rituals. So you are really the guest of Allah. You are not the guest of the Al Saud or this person or that person. But nevertheless, political differences can be problematic. Ideological differences can be problematic. Of course, now compared to Hajj in the old days, You just go to perform the rituals, and you are not allowed to engage in any other activity. Now, Hajj is a global conference, is a global annual conference for the Ummah, the entire Ummah. People come from the east, from the west, from the north, from the south, different languages, different colors, different cultures. They come to see each other. And I remember my first Hajj as a young student in 1972 in Mina. People were the camps where the pilgrims were staying were actually like uh, very active. It's universities, like summer camps, very much like summer camps. I resembled it to the summer camps we students used to go to, where you listen to scholars giving lectures and talking about how to improve ourselves, how to improve our ummah. We listen to Muslims who come from far away places where they have their own different needs and problems. We listen to them, and we understand their plights, and we sympathize with them. We try to help them. I remember that in 1972, there was even in Mina a camp for Palestinian fighters. Imagine, Palestinian guerrilla fighters, or fidaiyin as we call them, resistance fighters belonging to the Fatah movement. They were allowed to come to pilgrimage to Hajj and speak to people about their struggle, about their cause, etc. And similarly, there were people from every other part of the world. Today, all of this is completely banned. And there's only one rhetoric, there's only one line of discourse, one that glorifies the rulers of the country and does not allow the Muslims who have come from everywhere in the world to talk about the plight of each other, about their needs, about, for instance, today, what plight is bigger than Gaza and what's happening to the people of Gaza. I bet you none of this is allowed to be discussed. Well, and only recently, I think a couple of weeks ago, there was news of a woman being arrested in the Haram for hoisting a Palestinian flag, and another for uttering a few words in support of Gaza. The rulers are so horrified of any political message that they ban this completely. And of course, that shows very clearly that the Ummah is not in the best of its conditions. Hajj is supposed to be a global congress, a global conference. This reminds me of Abdurrahman al-Kawakibi, a great thinker of the early years of the 20th century, who wrote a book called al-Qura. And this Syrian alim or scholar imagined, as used to be the custom at the time, that there were scholars meeting during the Hajj season to discuss the condition of the Ummah. What's wrong with our Ummah? How can we improve our situation? And he named each alim after the city from which they came. So you had, for instance, you had al-Baghdadi, you had al-Dimashqi, you had things like that. And these scholars in this very nice book called al-Qura, we're talking about the catastrophe that befell the Ummah, of course, as a result of colonialism. Muslim lands were invaded and the Ottomans were being defeated, etc. That the root cause of the problem, after they deliberated during their conference in Mecca, of course, all of this is imaginary, not real, didn't happen, but it reflects things that actually did happen during the season. They came to the conclusion that the root of the problem was that the Ummah is not free. The Ummah lost its freedom. and individual members of the Ummah no longer choose their rulers, and they are no longer able to make their rulers accountable to them. So the answer is to go back to Shura, this great Islamic value that is mentioned twice in the Quran, where the Ummah is actually one of the main two sources of legitimacy for whoever is ruling. The first is Sharia, and the second is Shura, which means that the Ummah is involved in decision making. Now, what Abdurrahman al-Kawakibi imagined and wrote about in his small book was actually happening to some degree until, as I mentioned earlier, my teens. When I went to Hajj in 1972, I saw this with my own eyes. And it continued to happen afterwards because the scholars who went to Hajj used to tell us about it. I have a TV program on Al-Hiwar TV channel called Murajaat, where I interview prominent figures, scholars. I interviewed many of them, and many of them have passed away. May Allah have mercy on them. Like Isam al-Attar, like Kamil al-Sharif, like Ishaq al-Farhan, and like Sheikh Abdul Salam Yassin of Morocco, many others, and many are still alive. Hassan Turabi as well, may Allah have mercy on all of them. And they used to tell me that often it was in Hajj that they met each other and exchanged opinions about the state of the Ummah and how to get things better and how to cooperate between them. This was, they were not doing it secretly because it wasn't banned. It wasn't considered to be a crime as it is today. Now, unfortunately, today Hajj comes for the 7 or 8 consecutive years when there are so many scholars in Saudi prisons, great scholars, thinkers, who used to go to Hajj every year to meet the Muslims coming from around the world, to talk to them, to listen to them, to try and get help for them. Muslims from China, Muslims from Myanmar, Muslims from Bangladesh, Muslims from Africa, various parts of Africa, new Muslims, converts who come in, and these scholars used to be associated with relief agencies, humanitarian organizations, and they used, so Hajj was not just a ritual, it was truly an annual congress for the Ummah, the entire Ummah, and the affairs of the Ummah always took priority. Nowadays, many people are banned from going to Hajj. And as I said earlier, the least that can happen to you is that you can be sent back from Jeddah, or you might be imprisoned, or you might be extradited to some government that is asking for you. Regrettably, this is happening, and things got much worse since the Arab Spring, since the Arab revolutions. These Arab revolutions that happened about 13 years ago, the regime in Saudi Arabia, as well as the regimes in neighboring countries in the Gulf, felt truly threatened that if a democratic model of Islamic governance proves itself in a country like Egypt, a very important country, one of the most important countries in the region, then it could become a model that young men and women who are longing for freedom and who want to be respected as human beings and appreciated, and who want to for their rights to be respected, would want the same sort of model of governance to occur in their own countries. And that's why Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates paid billions of dollars to the army in Egypt in order to bring down the first ever civilian elected president in Egypt, Dr. Muhammad Morsi, rahimahullah, who was, of course, imprisoned and then died in prison, or probably was killed in prison. May Allah accept him as a shaheed. Now, since then, things have become really bad, getting worse and worse, culminating today in a Hajj which is highly mechanical and very restrictive in terms of what Muslims can do together. Yes, you will perform the rituals, and your Hajj, inshallah, will be accepted. There's no doubt about it. Because Arkan al-Hajj, the pillars, the main acts in Hajj, you can perform them. But I think Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wanted Hajj to serve a lot more than this. Allah doesn't need our salat. Allah doesn't need for us to be exhausted just for the sake of exhaustion. He doesn't need us. Allahul Ghani, Allah is not in need of us. I think that the principal reason for the Hajj is for our spirituality to be improved, to be launched, to be charged, but also at the same time for our Ummah to have an annual opportunity for its scholars, its leaders, its thinkers, its activists to meet together, to discuss the state of the Ummah and how that state of the Ummah can be improved. Of course, some of you must have heard today that there is an argument among some Muslims as to whether in such circumstances one should go and perform Hajj. My personal opinion is that if you haven't performed Hajj, and if you have the means of performing Hajj, Hajj is obligatory. Nobody can change this. Definitely nobody can change this. However, if you have already performed Hajj, if you've done the obligation, I think in the current circumstances, one should refrain from keep going there again, because in my opinion, and I agree with people who share this opinion as well, it has been excessively commercialized, and it has been restricted to the extent, as I described earlier, people cannot even talk about the state of the Ummah. I think I'd rather stop here and provide you more time for discussion. I don't mind if you disagree with what I've said. Some of what I've said is my own opinions. And alhamdulillah, in Islam, we are entitled to have opinions as part of our ijtihad, whether we are right or whether we are wrong. We can still have a discussion and correct each other, inshallah.